Donald Trump is a flight risk. That's the accusation about Donald Trump from Judge Beryl Howell in some unsealed transcripts that we are just getting to see regarding a search warrant for his Twitter account. Fascinating that we got to see this because this was under seal until it went up on appeal, and then it was all unsealed for us to see this week. So let's talk about exactly what this is. Let's start with the fact that Jack Smith issued a search warrant to Twitter to get information about Donald Trump's account. It's the @RealDonaldTrump account. And he asked for everything from subscriber information to tweets to fleets to DMs, all sorts of things that is very standard, actually, that prosecutors now ask for in cases involving social media. And that's because not only do you want the information about the tweets that are public, you want to know all the surrounding data that is regarding a particular tweet. Like, so for example, you want to be able to prove who is the person who sent the tweet and whose account is it. And also to get the confidential stuff, right? The drafts that might not have gotten sent out, or the deleted messages, or these confidential direct messages or DMs that are sent to Donald Trump and that he potentially sent out. So these are reasons why a prosecutor would issue a search warrant for a social media account. And let's just remember what a search warrant is. A search warrant for a social media account is just like any other search warrant. It has two parts. It has the affidavit and it has the warrant. The affidavit is sworn under oath, and it is very much describing the probable cause that a crime occurred, as well as probable cause that particular evidence will be located or found in a particular place regarding that crime. And so that is what search warrants are. And so in this affidavit, Jack Smith would have had to spell out that a crime was committed, that there's probable cause to believe a crime was committed, and that evidence of that crime would be located in the Twitter account that's @RealDonaldTrump. Now, when you send or when you execute a search warrant, and you execute a search warrant to Twitter by sending it to them, and they're the ones who have to go in and send you the information and comply. It's very different from, like, you know, when law enforcement went and executed a search warrant on Mar-a-Lago, where the law enforcement went in themselves and did the search and retrieved the evidence and the classified documents. Here, you don't have law enforcement showing up at Twitter and taking their servers. You send it to them and they are supposed to comply with it. But like any search warrant, the affidavit is not shown to anyone. That's only the warrant. And the warrant is the order. It's the court order where the court says, I, Judge whoever, have found that the government has shown me or has proven that I find that there is probable cause to believe the following crime occurred and that there will be evidence of that crime at the following location. So that's all that Twitter gets to see. They don't know what the evidence is. They don't know what the probable cause is. They don't know anything about the investigation, just that a crime occurred and that they want this information. Well, what did Twitter do? You know, right after the time that Elon Musk, so don't forget, the Donald Trump's account got turned off or deactivated or whatever they do right after Jan 6. And then Elon Musk comes and reactivates it, okay? Because he believed allegedly in the First Amendment. And that's why he said, I mean, we all believe in the First Amendment, but he believed that Donald Trump has a right to say these inflammatory criminal things. And so therefore he should be, that somehow counts under the First Amendment. So he reactivated it. And, but they did not give over any of this information, despite the fact that they were ordered to by a court. And so they were fined in excess of $300,000 because they were held in contempt. Twitter was held in contempt. And then there was a hearing that took place. And this hearing is the transcripts that we just saw It was a 206-page transcript of this hearing that occurred in February in front of Judge Beryl Howell, which we've talked about a lot in Legal AF, right? She's the judge in the District of Columbia, the federal district judge, who was the chief judge for a while. And she conducted this hearing, and boy, was she not having it with Twitter. She did not like the way they came in and were being really cagey and not answering questions and hypocritical and not making sense. And let me give you some highlights from this hearing. So just some basic questions that she would ask, things like, did you turn this over? I mean, that's a yes or no, a yes or no question, right? She would take them through the actual warrant where it says, did you turn over all records involving information from October 20th to January 21st, including tweets created, drafted, favorited, liked, or retweeted by the account, Simple question, yes or no. And instead, they just gave this long, well, and, at one point, the lawyer for Twitter would have to whisper to the female lawyer sitting next to him, the clearly younger female lawyer. So at one point, Judge Howell was like, if she's got all the answers, why am I talking to you? Why can't she do the talking? Because it really looked like he was, as Popok said on Legal AF tonight, he said, it looked like this sort of mansplaining that this Twitter lawyer was doing to this woman who Judge Howell wanted to hear from. Anyway, so, what Judge Beryl Howell said was that Twitter mounted what looked like an unprecedented effort to stop this search. They wanted to, first of all, notify Trump about this search warrant. And there was a non-disclosure that the government sought from the judge. And so there was a non-disclosure that was issued by the court at the request of the prosecution. Again, standard in many cases if it's necessary. And the prosecutors described that if Donald Trump learned about this, because this was still an active investigation, don't forget this was prior to the indictments, it says that if prosecutors said that if he learned about this, it would be a serious threat to the investigation and to the witnesses. And, Twitter wanted to tell Trump about it, and they wanted to, tell him about, this non-disclosure, because their reasoning was that there might be stuff in here from executive privilege, right? Some of the DMs and stuff could be communications covered by a legitimate executive privilege. But Judge Howell pushed back and said, wait a minute. There's lots of other users who have valid privilege claims like marital privilege, a religious privilege, etc., attorney-client privilege. You don't give them that treatment. You, in the 17-year history, you have always abided by these non-disclosure orders. But in this particular case, why are you bending over backwards to help Donald Trump? And so Judge Howell just didn't understand what is going on. Why is this happening? And so this is very much, as they say, a hot bench. Judge Howell was really putting them on their toes and, and asking a lot of questions. At one point in the hearing, it was talked about that in January of 2021, so after the Jan 6 insurrection, he wrote a letter to the National Archives revoking a February 2017 letter designating certain people to act as his representative regarding documents, right, to the National Archives. And he switched it to Mark Meadows, Pat Cipollone, and Pat Philbin, and others. And the reason that's significant is because the government wants to establish who was using this Twitter account, right? Who's responsible and who had access to it. And so it's important to kind of get a sense of who could have been involved in these tweets and who wasn't. Another question that came up at the hearing was, over the scope of what they had to turn over, and and that it was too much, et cetera. But the judge kept saying basically that you're playing games, and didn't let him play any games. So look, the other thing that came out during the hearing was the government said, look, during all these meet and confers, when we tried to come to some resolution, we didn't want to come to you, Judge, because lawyers don't want to have to go to a court to resolve things like this. The lawyers never told the government about certain things, like that Twitter preserved the account twice, once the January 3rd, 2021 to January 9th, 2021, and then again January 11th to January 12th, 2021. That they preserved the account twice during that time. Well, the government said they never heard of that. So there were things coming up at the hearing that they never knew about. And the court said, this was what was astonishing to me, and it was a quote. It said, "Is it because the CEO of Twitter, i.e. Elon Musk, wants to cozy up with the former president, and that's why you're here? Why is it that we have to keep discussing why you want to keep it quiet?" So I thought that was really a bold accusation there on the course of a judge, but you could tell this judge was not having it, was very frustrated with the way Twitter was being non-responsive and not listening. And so there you have it. So this was an incredibly interesting hearing to learn about and to read. Apparently there was, quote, some volume of DMs there that are now in the government's hands. We don't know if there were any that Trump actually wrote. We know that they could just be all incoming, because we know he was a little bit he didn't email a lot, etc. So who knows what it'll be, but Jack Smith has it, and he even has the deleted one. So we'll find out at the trial. Even if some of them are not admissible, certainly you can use them to cross-examine witnesses if they say something differently than what Jack Smith has. But there's a lot going on in this trial, and Jack Smith has a lot of evidence, and now we know he has all of this confidential Twitter information. Join us every Wednesday and Saturday at 8 o'clock Eastern, Legal AF. I'm Karen Friedman-Agnifilo.
Hey, Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.